Greetings, it is I, Phil Smith, here to give you a bit of an update of sorts. So, it's been a while, and in that time, I have definitely accumulated quite a lot of new movies for my collection, both on DVD, Blu ray, and 4K. And I have officially opened my online soundtrack store, Sounds Like Phil, which you can get an opportunity to take a visit using the link that will be in the description of this video. If you haven't already done so, I highly recommend looking for this shop on Instagram under Sounds Like Phil. That's SOUNDSLIKE. You will find the Instagram account also has a link to the actual store, which is through the website Sellfy. So whatever you're looking for in terms of soundtracks, make sure to read the opening description of the shop, because there might be a few things you're expecting to see but may not actually be on the website. So I do address that in the description, just so you know, to detract anyone who might be looking for anything that I'm not actually selling. But on the website, you will find a lot of rarities, 80s soundtracks, some soundtracks from the 60s, 70s, and 90s, as well as maybe a few from today. And they're not only just the soundtracks, they're actually the scores as well. And there are a few specialty soundtracks that are on the website that have either never officially been released to the general public on a digital medium, or they're extended or expanded versions, or even sometimes unofficial versions of soundtracks that I've created, along with a few that I've been able to track down over many years, but I want to make them available to the public. There are a lot of people out there who do something that I won't, and one of those things is price gouging. There are people who, when these soundtracks were only run in limited quantities, they would buy two of them, or maybe even more, at a very low price, and then they would jack up the prices because they were no longer available. I don't do that. I don't believe in that. I think that if you are genuinely out there trying to hunt down a soundtrack that you've always wanted and could never find it, rather than going to some convention where you're going to see someone with a table that says rare soundtracks to movies and TV shows, and you find that soundtrack you've been looking for, and you pull it out, and there's the price tag, and it says $99.99 or $75. Not going to happen with Sounds Like Phil. I genuinely believe in giving everyone a fair price at what they're looking for. Usually, I price it out by $5 per disc utilized. For instance, if only one CD was used, $5. No additional shipping or taxes on that. If it was two CDs, $10, and so on and so forth. All the soundtracks that I have listed on Sounds Like Phil have their own respective prices. Again, I do not believe in price gouging. I think that's a terrible thing that people do, quite honestly, for something that they've been hoping and desiring for so many years, only to come find out it's like, man, that's going to cost me 2 days pay if I, try to buy that. It's ridiculous. And yeah, it is ridiculous. So fair prices all around on Sounds Like Phil. Definitely check it out. If you haven't already done so, on my YouTube page, I've got two trailers that you can view. One was a teaser trailer I released, and one is the official trailer I released about the shop. So definitely hop on over to Sounds Like Phil if you get an opportunity. I am really looking forward to doing business out there with people. Just one last note about that, if you didn't know already, I only ship to the United States and Canada. I do not do anything international, unfortunately. I am sorry, but since COVID, shipping rates out of Nevada alone are astronomically expensive. Just to send something like a sheet of paper in a simple manila envelope costs about $140. I kid you not. This is an actual rate that I looked up through the United States Postal Service out of Nevada to save Australia. That was an example I used when I'm looking it up, because someone asked me a couple months ago, can't you ship internationally? I live in Australia. Please, please, please. It costs over $100 to send something as simple as a small piece of paper, manila envelope, $140. Can't do it. I'm sorry. That's the way it goes. You do have an alternative, though, I will say. If you know someone in the States or Canada that is willing to ship it to you, I will be more than happy to ship it to that person on your behalf. But I personally cannot do international shipping. So that is out of the way. So, what have I accumulated in terms of movies? A lot. I'm amazed the stack here wasn't towering so much that I had to kind of split it open there to see you all. But I've done quite well over the last couple of months out of the remaining months of 2023 and the start of 2024. It's already February. Can you believe how fast January went by? I mean, I usually expect it to be that way. January tends to be the quickest month to go out of the start of the new year, but hey, here we are, February of 2024, and let's check out some of the stuff. So, we're going to start off here with some classic titles that I had been wanting to upgrade to, because most of these either had never been released before, or if they had, it was only on a VHS beta or Laserdisc format. So this first one is Cold Turkey. This is Norman Lear, director Norman Lear, the late great Norman Lear, pioneer of television who created All in the Family, Good Times, The Jeffersons, Facts of Life. He made one film in his entire lifetime, and that was this one, Cold Turkey. It is a hilarious dark comedy out of 1971 dealing with a cigarette company deciding to come up with a way to boost sales by promising one single city in North America the opportunity to get a giant $25 million cash prize if they can quit smoking cold turkey for one entire month, 30 days. It is such a hilarious dark comedy. More people really need to know about this, and I was pushing this film a lot after Norman Lear passed last year. Seriously, if you have the opportunity, check this out. It is from the now defunct distribution company Olive Films, but they put out a Blu-ray high-definition remaster of this film, and I watched it about a month ago with my buddy Jeff, who's also a big fan of it, and he actually introduced me to this film, and it is the most beautiful presentation we both have ever seen of it. It was a splendid remastering. I highly recommend checking it out. Cold Turkey. Next one, another Norman who unfortunately we lost just recently. This is his film, Norman Jewison. The Russians Are Coming, The Russians Are Coming. And this is a brand new reissued Kino Lorber Blu-ray. This Blu-ray now contains a brand new audio commentary by Michael Schlesinger and Mark Evanier. And I must say, I recently watched it with the commentary, and it made the film even better for me. I recently tried to rewatch this, and there were times where, guilty as charged, I was falling asleep. And watching it now with the commentary just made it even more laughable for me. I was a lot more alert this time around, and just listening to their camaraderie during this film, like, it's nonstop. There are hardly, if any, gaps in their commentary. And these are the right guys for this kind of a film to do commentary. These guys are also fans of my favorite film of all time. It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, which they also did commentary on with my friend Paul Scrabo, who's equally as big a Mad World fan as the two of them and myself and others combined. But The Russians Are Coming, The Russians Are Coming from Kino Lorber on Blu-ray, this newly reissued one with a slipcase as well. I always enjoy slipcases. You know, it's one of those little things. I have to say, you know, there are two types of people out there, I think, when it comes to collecting movies, and they're the types who, when it comes to, you know, a DVD or Blu-ray, you know, they either really, really love slipcases, or they really, really love steelbook editions, which are those, you know, kind of hard plastic covers that are made to almost look like they're steel, but they're really not. They're just called steelbook. I'm not as big on steelbook as I am slipcases, though. These slipcases can often be quite collectible. There are literally people on eBay who sell just slip covers or slipcases to people who didn't get them when they tried to, you know, own a movie that originally came with one. So these can be pretty rare, but there are people out there who collect these and really enjoy them. And, you know, I, for one, am right up there. I love the slipcases that they include with these, especially if they're going to include the original logo font there as they do for this one, for The Russians Are Coming, The Russians Are Coming. So Highly recommend this one. If you have never seen it, give it a shot. It's from 1966, so it's definitely dated, but it is a hilarious, hilarious film. Highly recommend it. Next, we're delving into one of the greatest directors of all time. She is one of the absolute best, a true pioneer of female directors, and I would love to just sit down and chat with her and just, laud her, praise her. She is incredible. She is so talented. She deserves her due so much, and that is Elaine May in her film A New Leaf. This is another film put out by Olive Films, the now defunct label, and this is a signature edition. They had a few select titles that they gave a few decent bonus features to, and this one contains a brand new audio commentary from film scholar Maya Montañez Smuckler. It includes 2 new video interviews, one with director Amy Heckerling, the other one with assistant editor Angelo Corral, I think his name is, Corral? Yeah, Corral. And they talk about, at least in the one with Angelo Corral, they talk about the way the film was edited and the original cut and what was cut out of this. Because this film is very notorious for having been originally well over 3 hours long, and it was a lot darker. This is a dark comedy in itself, right on par with Cold Turkey, but it's dark in that it involves a lot more when it comes to murder in a marriage. This is a film in which Walter Matthau is a man who has pretty much spent all his money, and he wants to get kind of back on top again and realizes the only way it's going to happen is if he marries someone who's rich and then murders her and keeps their money. Well, it turns out that he's found his match in the character of Henrietta, played by Elaine May, who also wrote and directed this film. That's a triple threat. When you're writing, directing, and starring in your own film, that doesn't happen a lot anymore. I think the only person I know who's ever done something similar with that was Mel Brooks, and also at times Carl Reiner. But again, to be a full-on lead in this is not something a lot of people did back then. When you wrote your own movie, directed it, and starred in it, you're really holding a lot of titles in that. But she did a phenomenal job. More people should know about Elaine May. I mean, there's a movie she did that I'm going to be watching soon called Mikey and Nicky. It's on HBO Max, and from what I understand, it's a little bit more of a darker tale as well, but it takes place in Philadelphia, which I'm looking forward to, being from Delaware. Philadelphia was my backyard, practically. But A New Leaf was a film introduced to me by a former coworker when I worked at the MGM Grand at CBS Television City. And again, it's one that not many people are going to talk about at length, but for those who enjoy classic film, classic early 70s comedy, especially dark comedies that tackled an issue like marriage and murdering those that you're trying to get the money for in order to come back on top again, A New Leaf is definitely that film to check out, from 1971, and I recently managed to track down an original copy of the screenplay, which supposedly will have the full version that Elaine May was forced to cut by the studio. She even took Paramount to court for this, tried to have her name removed from the film because she was so dissatisfied with the final product. But it does still hold a place in a lot of cinemaphiles' hearts. It's a good movie. Even in its cut version, it still does a good job, and I highly recommend it. This is out of print, though. I did have to go through eBay to get this, but it was in brand new condition. And again, the bonus features are well worth it. I watched it with the audio commentary, and it is perfect. Definitely give it a look, track it down. I think it's streaming on a few different places if you want to check it out, but A New Leaf, Olive Films Signature Edition. Another one that I picked up from Elaine May recently, this is another one that's hard to find. Her follow-up to A New Leaf, The Heartbreak Kid from 1972. Now, I had previously owned this on a DVD. It was one of the first DVDs I ever bought while living in Las Vegas. My mom and dad, when we first moved here back in 2003, we would go out a lot to a lot of the casinos, restaurants, and buffets, and one of the things I remember they had a lot of at the dessert table were these miniature pecan pies. And every time I brought that up, whenever my parents said, "What do they have up there? Let us know," and I'd come back and I'd mention pecan pie, My dad would always say, "Oh, they have the yummy, yummy pecan pie." And I looked at him like, "What do you mean the yummy, yummy pecan pie?" He says, "There's an old movie. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's called The Heartbreak Kid." And that's where that line comes from. And there was another line that my parents used to say a lot, which was, "We need to go. I don't like the element here." And that's a very subtle line said by Sybil Shepherd in the film, where she refers to her father, played by Eddie Albert, who was nominated for an Academy Award for this film. She says, we're leaving. Daddy doesn't like the element here. Elaine May's film of The Heartbreak Kid, which was, written by Neil Simon off a short story from Bruce J. Friedman called A Change of Plan. This is such a well-renowned film from the 1970s, and it has never gotten a good remastering. I bought this from someone who claimed it was a remastered Blu-ray edition. Truth be told, all it is really is an HD presentation, quote unquote, HD presentation of a YouTube upload that he transferred to a Blu ray disc. So, pretty much nothing uh, really upgraded in this version compared to the old DVD version I used to own, but I highly recommend seeking this out. This is one of those films that sadly is in the clutches of a pharmaceutical company. It's owned by Bristol Myers Squibb, a pharmaceutical company that took ownership of a few films in the early 70s. It was this film and a film called Sleuth, a detective comedy with, I believe it was with Michael Caine and James Mason. But for some reason, Sleuth, since then, has received multiple reissues on DVD and Blu ray. The Heartbreak Kid is not. And it's a big title that a lot of comedic legends have wanted to see come back. One of the big pushers of getting this film back out into the masses has been Jerry Seinfeld, as Jerry has actually gone on record saying it is his favorite comedy of all time. I feel like if anyone could pick this up, it would be Kino Lorber or the Criterion Collection, especially Criterion. I feel like a perfect bonus feature for this would be a one-on-one interview between both Jerry Seinfeld and Elaine May. I mean, Elaine recently I saw did participate in some interviews for, I think it was Turner Classic Movies, a salute to her films recently. They just aired it last month, and I've seen some clips uploaded on YouTube of her doing interviews. And she's up there. I think she's like, I want to say 83, 84, maybe even older. I'm not 100% sure. But again, more people should really seek out the work of Elaine May. You talk about a great, incredible, trailblazing female director and writer for that matter. She is the best. I just have to say, more of her work needs to be seen. I think, if you want to talk about great female directors since, trailblazing as Elaine May set out to do, I would go so far as to say, you could call her the Greta Gerwig of her day. And she does phenomenal with both these films, both A New Leaf and The Heartbreak Kid. The Heartbreak Kid is not as easy to find as A New Leaf, I will say. So if you are looking for The Heartbreak Kid, chances are, if you can't find it anywhere else, just watch it on YouTube. Someone did upload the full film on YouTube. It's available to watch. No one's saying anything about it. No one's removed it. And if they do, it comes back like that. It's always popping up. So glad to at least have another physical copy of The Heartbreak Kid. Here's another one that I have had quite a time trying to track down. Heavy Traffic from one of my favorite animation directors, Ralph Bakshi, the man who did the original animated Lord of the Rings film, Wizards, Cool World. He also did American Pop, Hey Good Looking, and he also did the Fritz the Cat, the original Fritz the Cat animated feature film. Heavy Traffic was his follow-up to Fritz the Cat, and it deals a lot with a combination of live action and animation hybrid stuff. Has a lot to do with the theme of pinball, and it's got quite a cool soundtrack also. Sergio Mendes and Brazil 66 perform a very cool rendition of Scarborough Fair, the Simon and Garfunkel song. But this film used to be available on Blu-ray through Shout Factory, and it quickly went out of print, and I have yet to see it reissued. I think it's definitely a good film that would make for Kino Lorber, as they put out a really good special edition of Fritz the Cat. And I personally think this is a superb film. I think it holds up still 50 years later. Again, I did not get the actual Shout Factory version of this. This is actually a Blu-ray transfer of the Shout Factory disc that was done by an online distributor called Sloppy Seconds DVD or Blu-ray, something to that effect. Sloppy Seconds Sales, that's the name of it. And they print it right there on the label too, Sloppy Seconds Sales. But it's in great quality, and they sell a lot of stuff that has been out of print for a while for good prices. I think I bought this for only $8.99, so highly recommended for all you animation fans out there for wanting something a little beyond what Walt Disney or Hanna-Barbera or Warner Brothers would do. Ralph Bakshi, Heavy Traffic. Check it out. Next, we have a few Criterions I decided to purchase. Howard Hawks' His Girl Friday, along with The Front Page. This is a classic comedy that I remember watching back when I was in college, and it was during the time, again, I was learning a lot about slapstick stuff and screwball comedies, and I remember this was around the time I had seen the Philadelphia Story for the first time, as well as watching certain films that I had gotten into previously, like Arsenic and Old Lace, but also His Girl Friday I had seen out here in Las Vegas. I had actually gotten it from the local library. And they had both His Girl Friday and the 1931 version of The Front Page. Turns out this version of The Front Page was restored by UNLV's Department of Film, I found out. They're even printed there on the bottom there of the cover, which was intriguing to me. And it's a beautiful presentation what they put on this, especially bonus feature wise, and even I like how they did this. The insert here is made to resemble an actual newspaper here for the films, and you can look all through it here, and it's really well made here. What Criterion did for this Blu-ray, it's two discs, one for His Girl Friday and the other for The Front Page. Came out back in 2017. But I was able to track that down through eBay, and again, both films look amazing in high definition. Another one that I've always loved on Criterion, in fact, this is one of the first Criterion films I think I actually watched on DVD. Jean-Luc Godard's Band of Outsiders, 1964. This is actually one of Quentin Tarantino's biggest inspirations for when he made Reservoir Dogs, as well as Pulp Fiction. In fact, the production company he named Band Apart is based off the original French title of Band of Outsiders, Bande Apart. And this film still holds up. The Blu-ray remastering, a high-def presentation of this is gorgeous. Highly, highly recommend this one. If you're into check it out, or just, an old hand at French New Wave films, this should definitely be in your collection. Going into the indie route now. Now, this one had a lot of controversy when it came out. Still is considered controversial by many, but it's a great indie film from the mid-90s. Gregg Araki's The Doom Generation with Rose McGowan, James Duval, and Jonathan Schaech. This film has some of the most grotesque and gruesome scenes of any independent film I have seen, at least at that point. I think at that time, when I first saw it, it was about 1997, and my first independent film that I had watched was 1995's Welcome to the Dollhouse with Heather Matarazzo. And I remember thinking that film was pretty heavy for what it depicted, but The Doom Generation goes well beyond what you'd see in Welcome to the Dollhouse. But it's an amazing restoration that they did for the Blu-ray. They say it's called the remixed and remastered 4K restoration edition. Truth be told, nothing in this film is really new in terms of what you see. This is a director's cut. However, what it is when I originally owned this film, I had it on VHS tape, and it was the unrated version. Now, this is exactly what's on here. However, the picture and sound quality has been fully upgraded to a 4K presentation, even though it's on a Blu-ray disc. So it's mastered for 4K, but it's not a 4K Ultra HD. However, what this film does on Blu-ray is completely blows the previous releases out of water. Looks better, sounds incredibly better, and it's to the framing that the director Greg Araki wanted. It's a perfect widescreen presentation, and it's just absolutely beautiful. This is a beautifully remastered HD presentation. Again, if you're an indie fan, you'll definitely want to check it out. If you're a fan of Greg Araki, don't know most of his earlier stuff, but you're familiar with his later stuff like Smiley Face, Kaboom. It's either Kaboom or Kablooey. I think it's called Kaboom actually, with Juno Temple. But definitely check out the Doom Generation. It was one of his earliest works from 1995, and it is a incredible, incredible trip. Let's put it that way. It's an incredible trip. Now going into something from a little more recent, I purchased the Blu-ray DVD combo of The Holdovers. This has definitely been one of my favorite films of 2023. It has been doing well on the awards circuit. Paul Giamatti has been getting his due, as well as Divine Joy Randolph. She has been doing wonderfully, getting a lot of recognition for her role in the film. This is just an incredible film from Alexander Payne, who did Sideways, the what was it, Election. He also did Nebraska, and it's definitely an out there kind of film, but I love it primarily for its nostalgic setting. It takes place in the early 1970s, and the look of the film was done perfectly to match the look of a classic film that came out of that time. We're talking films that are like Harold and Maude, like The Last Detail, a lot of Hal Ashby kind of films. And this film is really a tribute, I think, that Alexander Payne did to make it look just like those classic films of the early 70s. If you have not seen The Holdovers, give it a watch. It's not necessarily a film I think that is going to win Best Picture, considering what competition it has, but it's definitely a very, very beautiful film. I am so happy that it got nominated for Best Picture of 2023. Definitely give it a watch, The Holdovers. Now moving in to a lot of 80s stuff that I've purchased or have received. Two of these first two were actually Christmas gifts from Kelly. I got the Police Academy collection from Shout Factory, which has all 7 Police Academy films. Excuse me. It's got all the original features that were on the original Police Academy box set collection that came out in 2004. This came out one year short of its 40th anniversary. The original film came out in March of 1984. But this is a couple new features, a couple new interviews, including 2 with G.W. Bailey, who played Captain Harris, and Lance Kinsey, who played Lieutenant Proctor, as well as producer Paul Maslansky, writers Neil Israel and Pat Proft, and composer Robert Falk, who wrote the Police Academy music for all 7 films. Plus, it's got a bunch of additional deleted scenes. Now, truth be told, I will say, they got all these deleted scenes, except for Police Academy 4, which already had them included on the original DVD back in 2004. They got all the other deleted scenes for the other 5 films. 7 didn't have any deleted scenes, unfortunately, put on this, but the other 5 films that they got the deleted scenes for, they all came from YouTube, and I've seen all of them before. So that was nothing new, and that seems to be the way a lot of these studios, the boutique labels like Shout Factory, Kino Lorber, and even Criterion to some effect, seem to be going with those kind of things when they're doing TV spots, theatrical trailers, or deleted scenes that were included for the TV broadcast. They're solely relying now on the people who have recorded them on VHS tape and uploaded them to YouTube. Primarily, I'm guessing, because the studios aren't going to dig into the vaults to find them, which is unfortunate at times, but hey, some other fan has access to get this stuff. Why not? It's the best you can do. It's the only source you have, so why not? But this was a really good, well-produced, well-packaged collection. I'm really happy that I got it for Christmas. I'm very happy to add it to the collection now. There's another one I got for Christmas from Kelly. Shout Factory's 4K and Blu-ray combo of Clue the Movie. Now, this had been announced a while back, and so many people were clamoring about it, wondering if it was going to include, for the most part, either a new audio commentary from director Jonathan Lynn, or at the very least, the legendary fourth ending, which was only ever published in book form. It was in the Clue Storybook Kids novelization and the paperback novelization. And no, it is not included on this, nor am I going to tell you what it is. If you want to know what it is, you can look it up. It is out there. It's not out there in terms of the footage, but the actual written text of what the fourth ending entails is out there. However, the few featurettes that were put into this new edition on 4K were pretty decent, and in the short amount of footage that I watched of the 4K master, it's good. It's actually a very nice presentation, and I'm happy to own Clue. Previously, I had owned Clue on DVD. I think I got it at a Walmart while in college for like $5, but I ended up selling it somewhere down the road, and came to find out, unfortunately, went out of print. It's been brought back a couple times on Blu-ray, but very basic. Just the film, the trailer, and the three endings, which you can watch either individually as part of a version of the film that you watch, or all three together the way it was presented on home video. But Clue the movie, 4K, Blu-ray, glad to now own that in my collection. There's another one that I'm happy to own now on Blu-ray. I was originally searching for it on 4K, but that is impossible to find. So I figure, you know what? I think I'll be satisfied just with the Blu-ray of it, and that is Arrow Video's Witness, limited edition Blu-ray box set. This is a film that I had just seen for the first time last year and loved. I think I watched this in the early summer, June, I believe, of 2023, and then just got so into it. I wanted to own it very badly, and just as luck would have it, Arrow announced that it was putting it out later that year on Blu-ray and 4K, and this is a very well produced box set here. It contains a double-sided poster, actually, for the film, and it has both the original artwork as well as newly custom-made work here. So there's the original poster, and then this is the newly commissioned work here that they did for that. Very happy to have that as part of the package. Plus a very cool booklet here, as Arrow Video usually does with a lot of their releases. They include a lot of booklets containing interviews, which usually is one of the big pushers of why they label it as a limited edition, because typically once these are gone, they'll reissue the film, but just with the film on the Blu-ray or 4K without the bells and whistles, as they call it, for the booklet and the poster. But from what I've watched so far, I watched about 20 minutes of it the other week, and the Blu-ray remastering compared to the original DVD I watched of it, oh, apples to oranges. It is beautiful. If you've never seen this, definitely check it out. It is a very different kind of role for Harrison Ford. Kelly McGillis in it is beautiful as the character of Rachel, and it's got some good supporting players too. In fact, a very young Viggo Mortensen is in this film, which surprised me when I first watched it. I couldn't believe when I saw it. But yeah, I mean, Viggo did a bunch of films in the 80s to get his start, and Witness was one of the first on his resume. So, Witness, highly recommend that one. This is one I really had to work hard to track down, because it's another one that's out of print. The Blu-ray of Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield. This is a great 80s comedy that I cannot recommend enough. It was directed by Alan Metter, and the screenplay was written by Stephen Campman and Will Porter, along with Peter Torokvey and Harold Ramis. Harold Ramis had a hand in this while producing a lot of movies in the 80s, and Back to School is definitely, it definitely feels like a Harold Ramis film. This was not an easy Blu-ray to come by. Believe it or not, this has been out of print for quite some time. It hasn't been reissued since 2007, when it came out on the special edition DVD and Blu-ray. I actually was fortunate enough to win this in a eBay auction, which some guy had both this and Caddyshack available on Blu-ray, I think for like $18.99 or something. Whereas other people who are just selling Back to School jack up the price to well over 50 or $80. That's ridiculous. But this was still sealed, And watching it on Blu-ray for the first time, it looked incredible. It is a beautiful high-def remastering. Even from 2007, it looks great and sounds great. So I didn't have to worry about the Caddyshack Blu-ray because I already own that, so that'll probably get traded to Zia Records. But Back to School Blu-ray got some good bonus features on there too. Some archival featurettes, including some interviews with Burt Young as well as Harold Ramis. You know, it's always great to see those who are no longer with us. You know, their memories and legacies preserved like that. So Back to School, highly recommend if you're able to find it for a decent price. Get the Blu-ray. Looks and sounds beautiful. There's another one that was long out of print, and for good reason too, because it's pretty controversial, this film. Twilight Zone, the movie. Now, what I have here is actually a custom-made version of the Blu-ray. This is the film presented in high definition, but the original Blu-ray of this, when it came out also in 2007, only had two things added to it. It had the film presented in widescreen for the first time, and it only contained the film's theatrical trailer. That was it. For good reason. If you know about this film, and if you don't, I'm going to give you a little explanation. When this film was made, a terrible tragedy occurred. During the filming of the sequence featuring Victor Morrow, who's pictured there, his character was doing a film scene that was supposed to show him rescuing these two Vietnamese children with a helicopter flying overhead while he's wading through kind of a lake to get them to safety. His character in the film is a very racist man who, in this Twilight Zone story, was supposed to get an act of redemption by saving these two kids. John Landis, who directed National Lampoon's Animal House and American Werewolf in London and The Blues Brothers, was directing that particular segment. He went against industry rules and kept these children filming illegally, and a tragic moment of a miscalled direction caused the helicopter soaring overhead to malfunction, dove down into the water, killing Victor Morrow and those two kids. I'm not going to get into graphic detail about this because that's all that needs to be said. That filming of that sequence caused the lives of 3 people, including 2 children. This Blu-ray actually contains the footage of the onset sequence as it occurred, because about 4 or 5 cameras all captured this. And this footage was made public for when John Landis had to appear in court for this incident in the mid-80s. It's definitely got a very grim story to the making of it. That's true. However, if you watch this film in its entirety, it's actually got some decent suspense to it. Each of the 4 sequences that are presented in it are all done by different directors. You've got John Landis, Steven Spielberg, George Miller, I believe it is. Let me just double check that. Yeah, George Miller, who did the Mad Max films, and Joe Dante, one of my personal favorites. It is still a great film, and even though it's a notorious film for what happened, the film in itself is a fascinating watch, and it's entertaining too. This custom DVD was created by, let's see if I can find the name of it here. I don't know if it's explicitly on here, but I got this online from a place, Digital Media Services, DMS, that's what it's called. Digital Media Services has this Blu-ray available with a couple of added bonus features, most of which were culled from some online sources, but it is a great high-definition presentation of the Twilight Zone, the movie. If you've only ever seen it on television, if you've only ever seen it on VHS tape, definitely check this out. If you're a fan and you want to own this and it's out of print, go through Digital Media Services, look up Twilight Zone Blu-ray. Well worth it. Another 80s film that I came to appreciate in recent years, actually. This is a good comedy from 1987, Real Men, with James Belushi and John Ritter from Dennis Feldman. This guy actually was a writer. He wrote the film The Golden Child with Eddie Murphy, but this is his one and only film, I believe, that he directed. And it's a funny movie, actually. It's got an interesting concept where James Belushi is a secret agent who seeks out this doppelganger to an agent who was supposed to follow up in a mission played by John Ritter, but he's killed. So he finds his doppelganger, also played by John Ritter. And the whole plot of this is that he has to give a government glass with the presidential seal on it, a glass of water to an alien spaceship being. Yeah, I know. You hear that and it's like, so wait a minute. This whole film is about a guy, a secret agent, trying to give a glass of water to an alien being that lands on a spacecraft. Like, yeah, that's literally what it is. But it's done in a very funny, comedic way. There's a lot of gunplay. There's a lot of action sequences. And John Ritter is basically John Ritter, as you know him from Three's Company, as you know him from Problem Child. He's stumbling and bumbling and toppling all over the place, but it's funny. It's a good, fun '80s film that really didn't get its due when it originally came out, but it definitely had a bit of a following on video. And Kino Lorber put this out, and it's again another out of print title that I was able to secure on eBay for a low price, whereas others are selling it for well over 70, $80. So if you have a chance to watch Real Men, the DVD is also available. It's in full frame though, not widescreen, and it's not the greatest quality presentation, but seek it out if you can. You know, check it out to see if it's streaming anywhere. But also, if you do have an opportunity to track it down on DVD at least, give it a watch. Funny film, Real Men. A bit of a horror film now. This film from 1983, or actually, is it 83? Well, actually, technically it's 81, but it came out in 83. And that's The Entity from Sidney J. Furie, the man who directed Little False and Big Halsey. Also, Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, and one of my favorite Vietnam era films, The Boys in Company C. This film, for all intents and purposes, can be considered the original Poltergeist. This is a film about a woman who is being repeatedly attacked by an unseen force in her house. And it only affects her. Her family is not affected by it. Her son and daughter are not affected. It's only attacking her. And the lead in this film, Barbara Hershey, does an incredible job of acting against nothing. Like, she's basically having to, like, you know, convulse and contort her body in various ways as if she's being thrown against, you know, the wall of her bedroom or, you know, the shower, you know, what have you. But this is a really interesting film in that it's based on an actual true story of a woman who was basically getting attacked by an unseen force, an entity, a ghost, you know, in her home. And it really works. You know, this film is scary. This film has some really amazing frights in it. And of all people to do the score for this film, Charles Bernstein. Charles Bernstein wound up doing the score for the original Nightmare on Elm Street. Freddy's theme, you know, that dum 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 dum. That was him. Charles Bernstein did it. You know, this is one of his first compositions that he did for The Entity back in 1981. This film was originally supposed to come out, though, in 1982. And what do you think stopped it from coming out then? You guessed it, Poltergeist. Poltergeist did the better job at the box office. The Entity kind of came and went, just like that. But Shout Factory, or rather Scream Factory, put out a hell of a great disc on this. Got a bunch of new interviews and commentary, and it looks and sounds phenomenal. It's presented in a scope aspect ratio of 2.35 to 1. Sidney J. Furie, he did an incredible horror film with this. So seek it out if you get a chance, The Entity. Next one was a film I kind of bought sight unseen from a trailer I had seen in one of my trailer compilation Blu-rays, 315. An interesting film about like high school gangs with Adam Baldwin, Deborah Foreman from Valley Girl, Danny De La Paz, Renee Auberjonois, and Ed Lauder. This is one I really can't explain a whole lot because even after watching it, I'm kind of still like, what was that all about? And I mean, you could call it like a high school movie, you can call it a gang movie, you can call it like a, you know, just a tough guy movie, but it's got some substance there. Definitely, I'd recommend checking out the trailer before because that's really what got me into wanting to watch it. I found this on eBay It was from Scorpion Releasing, which is kind of like a subsidiary of Kino Lorber, but it's got a decent HD remastering, plus a new on-camera interview with Danny De La Paz, plus the trailer, and it's got reversible cover art too. So if you get a chance to check it out, again, that's the reversible art there, as you can see. It was also known as 315: The Moment of Truth. I think that's what they called the VHS of it, but 315 is the actual proper title for this film from 1985. Again, with Adam Baldwin and Deborah Foreman from Valley Girl. 315. Give it a look if you get a chance. Finally, on the 80s rack of DVDs, I picked up a DVD that was so dirt cheap, but it's in pretty much like new condition. I got this, I think, for like $2.99 at Zia Records, and that is Spring Break from 1983. This is a teen beach comedy that came out in the early 80s with a really good soundtrack, too. I think it was also known as Spring Break 83. But this film is a fun little beach movie, teen comedy from the early 80s. Not a whole lot of big names in it. I don't think there's a single name actually on here. Okay, I take that back. There's one name that I recognized on here, and that was Perry Lang. Perry Lang was in one of my favorite Spielberg comedies, 1941. He was also in the baseball movie Eight Men Out with Charlie Sheen and John Cusack. But this is also an interesting first role for, of all people, Jeff Garlin from The Goldbergs and Curb Your Enthusiasm. He plays kind of like this Hulk-like character who's like a belly flop champion. There's this whole sequence that deals with guys trying to outdo each other by how high up they can dive to do a belly flop, and he's like the champion of doing that. But yeah, Jeff Garlin is in this film, but it's one of those you really have to look for him. But once you see him, you can't miss him. So Spring Break, aka Spring Break '83, glad to have that now in my collection. You tired yet? I try to make these as quick as possible with what I have, but if you're still watching, I appreciate you. Next up, one of my favorite Tarantino films. It's not even officially a Tarantino film, it's an ensemble film. And that is 1995's Four Rooms Blu-ray that I got on eBay. This is a Region B from Via Vision, which is the only release of this film that actually contains a couple of decent bonus features and collectible slipcase packaging here. This film has had quite a life on both DVD and VHS, as well as Laserdisc, but it had never really gotten its due on Blu-ray. But this contains a few new featurettes, plus the original theatrical trailer. This is a very different film, and it's kind of an oddball. This film was actually released New Year's Eve, 1995. That's right, December 31st, 1995. This film was released on the masses, and rightfully so, unfortunately. Getting released on a day like that, it tanked. But it has had quite a cult following since it came out on DVD and VHS, I believe. But Blu-ray, it has not come to the States yet. It has only been released on Blu-ray overseas. Europe, Australia. I think there's even a Japanese release. But that's the only way to find it on Blu-ray. And I tracked it down on eBay. Someone had a copy in the States, a couple of them, and I managed to buy one, ironically, just before New Year's Eve. And I rewatched it very close to that time, and it still holds up. It's still a hilarious comedy. I know my college roommate Rusty would agree. This is when I introduced him to, and he thought it was hilarious as well. It's basically 4 different segments, much like The Twilight Zone, directed by a different independent director. One directed by Allison Anders, one by Alexandra Rockwell, one by Robert Rodriguez, the other by Quentin Tarantino. And it all centers around a bellhop named Ted, played by Tim Roth. It's an all-star cast that includes Antonio Banderas, Jennifer Beals, Valeria Golino, there we go, Kathy Griffin, Madonna, Ione Skye, Quentin Tarantino himself, Marissa Tomei, Lily Taylor, and more. Give it a watch. It's available out there on DVD for sure. probably streaming somewhere. But if you want a little something different than your usual fare of, say, Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, Kill Bill, Desperado, El Mariachi, Once Upon a Time in Mexico, give Four Rooms a look. You might actually laugh. Next up, we get, excuse me, we get what I call the high school slash college cheating duo here. Two films that came out roughly the same time in an era of films that were being made about people trying to cheat their way through their education. And I've owned both of these before on an American format of DVD. However, they were really slim on bonus features. So I come to find out that the European versions of these both have a little bit more in terms of bonuses. And those films were Slackers and Cheats, also known as Cheaters. Both of these, for I feel like it doesn't even have to be stated, but I will state it. Both of these films absolutely bombed at the box office. Cheats didn't even make it really to theaters because it was overshadowed by, I believe it was a either a Showtime or HBO film called Cheaters, which was a true account of this professor who helped his students cheat their way through these academic decathlon type things. This film was originally called Cheaters, but when that Cheaters true life film came out, even though this was also a real true story that happened between a bunch of high school buddies, this film had to retitle itself, drop the ER, and just become known as Cheats. It actually had its debut, I remember, on Showtime, I think it was, because I watched it with my college roommate, Chris, back in my sophomore year of college. So it did get a DVD and VHS release, but it's been quickly out of print since then. But it got a good presentation for its foreign version here. In fact, it contains about 3 extra minutes that was not in the original American cut. Slackers, on the other hand, has an interesting story in that this film was Slackers from the get-go, and it had an interesting cast of up-and-comers at that time, including Devon Sawa, Jason Schwartzman, Jason Segel, Michael Morona, Big Pete from The Adventures of Pete and Pete, Laura Prepon from That 70s Show, and Jamie King, or as she was known back then, James King. This was pre-Sin City Jamie King. But it's a pretty funny film, and it's got some nice little bonus features, including a music video from Jason Schwartzman's band Phantom Planet called Lonely Day. And again, these bonus features were only available on the region, I believe this is a region 4. Yeah, region 4 edition from Australia. So again, for two films that really didn't do so well at the box office or at any, didn't even appear at all in theaters, they're fun comedies. I have that odd, eccentricity of loving films that, tend to not do well or have a very small niche genre. In this case, the subgenre of cheating through your education. So I put these right up there with another film that I don't own, but do remember when it came out in 2004, The Perfect Score. It was kind of like an Ocean's 11 take on these high schoolers trying to get their SAT scores to be the best possible by literally stealing the test. Final stack we're going to look at here, these are all 4Ks that I have done some upgrading to. So first off, we have Jerry Lewis's The Nutty Professor. The Nutty Professor is known as one of Jerry Lewis's greatest comedies of all time. I would definitely put it up there with The Bellboy, one of my personal favorites, as well as The Errand Boy and The Ladies' Man. But The Nutty Professor has always been known as Jerry Lewis's one and only film you have to see if you genuinely aren't a Jerry Lewis fan. It's got a wide variety of bonus features ported over from the original Blu-ray, plus a few new bonus features. And what I like, it's the Paramount Presents Blu-ray, or 4K rather, that includes the flip open here to the original poster. I always like how they do that. And it's beautiful. The 4K presentation of this is absolutely breathtaking. It's from 1963, so it's a 50th anniversary presentation. The colors are 60th now. Wow, 60. Whew. Yeah, 1963. 60 years and going strong. The colors just absolutely pop on this, pinks and blues and purples and greens all over the place. This is a film that, needed to be made in Technicolor. Jerry Lewis has made a lot of films in black and white and color, but this is probably the definitive Technicolor film that Jerry Lewis made. And if you're a fan, definitely seek this out because, again, a lot of these are exclusive only to the 4K, and it's just the 4K that is included in this set. There is no Blu-ray disc. It's a single 4K disc that contains the film and all of its bonus features. So, highly recommend The Nutty Professor. Next one did an upgrade to an 80s favorite of mine and my parents, Trading Places. So, this, I actually did own a Paramount Presents Blu-ray special edition of this with the flip open to the poster. However, I wanted to own it on 4K primarily because it's a film, much like the Rocky films, that predominantly takes place in Philadelphia. I wanted to watch that, filmic look from 1983, the year I was born. This film came out in 1983, so it's now 40 years old. And from what I've seen so far, I only watched about the first 10 or 15 minutes. And the good thing about that is that 10 or 15 minutes solely shows you just Philadelphia by itself, with some introductory scenes of the main characters. But to get to see Philadelphia looking as beautiful as it did way back then, 40 years ago, on the 4K of Trading Places, I can't recommend it enough. If you're an early 80s comedy fan like myself, I mean, just comedy overall in the 80s, which you're going to see more of in this stack, definitely seek out the 4K of Trading Places. So this is one that I thought I wouldn't get, but I thought, you know what, I should, just because I only own it as part of a John Hughes compilation collection on Blu-ray. I got the 4K of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, primarily because it retained the original 1999 DVD commentary that director John Hughes did. That was one of the very last things John Hughes ever did before he completely retired and went out of the public view. He recorded a commentary for Paramount's 1999 DVD release of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and that was the only way to hear that commentary. It was never reissued for the special editions on DVD. It was never reissued for any Blu-rays. Only this 4K brings back that commentary that he did way back in 1999, which is now, as I said earlier at the start of this year, 25 years ago. 1999 was 25 years ago now. I have to remind myself of that sometimes, but this still retains a couple of the bonuses that were on previous collector's edition DVDs and Blu-rays, and I did watch this in its entirety, and it looks spectacular. They did a great job with the Ultra HD upgrade. It just looks and sounds amazing. All the music sounds wonderful. The camera work done to show off the city of Chicago, Illinois is beautiful, just as beautiful as it looked in the Blues Brothers. Just a little bit more, colorful now that it's the mid-80s as opposed to the early 80s, but I recommend it. Check out the 4K of Ferris Bueller's Day Off if you get the chance. Now moving back to Tarantino territory. Pulp Fiction, I got the 4K of Pulp Fiction. Now, I rewatched this with Kelly, and we both agreed it's the best Pulp Fiction has looked in years. I have owned Pulp Fiction on Collector's Edition DVD, the Criterion Collection Laserdisc box set, and the Tarantino Double X Blu-ray box set that came out back in, I believe it was 2012. But this 4K makes Pulp Fiction look and sound like it was made yesterday. I cannot emphasize enough how wonderful Pulp Fiction on 4K looks. I don't have really a whole lot to say more than that. It's just absolutely stellar presentation, beautiful upgrade. If you love Quentin Tarantino and Pulp Fiction, seek out the 4K of Pulp Fiction. You will not regret it. Last but not least, I've got the Vinegar Syndrome 4K Blu-ray combo of Daryl, the 1985 film about a young boy who turns out to be a robot, or as his name says, data analyzing robot youth life form. This was an incredible thing when they announced it. I was so excited at the prospect of seeing one of my childhood favorites that I rented so much from the local video store in Wilmington, Delaware, get an upgraded 4K and Blu-ray. I just jumped the opportunity of owning it. Now, what I will say about this is I keep going all over the place. The 4K presentation of the film in itself, absolutely astounding. The picture looks great, the sound is amazing, and the only thing that I didn't quite like were the bonuses. Even with the brand new making of 55-minute long documentary, Rescued from the Scrapyard, The Making of Daryl, they could have gone further. They could have discussed all the stuff that was cut from the film. There is a paperback novelization of this that I own based off the original script that is just packed with so much more that they could have talked about or discussed, and they did not. Even the audio commentary from director Simon Windsor, he could have gone into a lot more detail about the film, and it's pretty much just a regurgitation of what you hear in the making of. It's very technical. In this making of, they interviewed the co-writers, they interviewed the visual effects supervisors, co-producers, costume designers, supervising editors, and film music historian Jeff Bond. They didn't interview a single member of the cast, and there are still people from this cast with us. Even Michael McKean and Colleen Camp, who were interviewed for Vinegar Syndrome's presentation of the Clue movie documentary that was made. They could have easily gotten them for this, but they didn't. So maybe they just did the best they could, but truly I feel like this was a 4K Blu-ray that could have done a little bit more if they tried. But it also contains a booklet with some good information as well that's not just, from the making of. So you get a little bit more with that. And, it's a pretty solid package there. It's got, the magnetic, closer there that just snaps right in there. And it's a beautiful presentation. It was a limited edition run of these. I don't know exactly how many of them were made, but I know a standard edition has been put out as of this week, I believe. But I'm happy to own it. Daryl, again, was a favorite of mine as a kid, renting it from the video store on VHS. And it's a very well done remastered 4K, and even the Blu-ray looks great as well. So that's all I got. That has been my movie journey over the last couple months, and there's still more to come, as there always will be, I'm sure. I thank you for sticking around and watching this. I do hope if you have an opportunity to check out Sounds Like Phil, my new soundtrack store online, as I am hoping to add more and more to it as the weeks go by. Again, these are mostly film soundtracks that I do enjoy. Maybe not everyone else, but you never know. You search around hard enough, look at all the stuff I've got available, you may just find something that you yourself really, really want to purchase. So I thank you for watching as always. Stay tuned for the next best thing through Sounds Like Phil, Phil's Flicks. No matter what, I'm just glad you're staying tuned here to me, Phil Smith. Have a good one.